So to give you a little bit more of background and context, our organization, WeCount, was responsible for pushing and introducing a local legislation at the Miami-Dade County level to provide and require businesses provide protections for their workers, right? Water, shade, and rest was what our organization wanted Miami-Dade County to implement at the local level, right? And so this legislation that is now getting a lot of news, HB 433, what it does is it prohibits, it blocks, it prevents any local city from passing any legislation that provides protections for outdoor workers. So that is what the legislation does. Outdoor workers work in extremely hot conditions where in Miami-Dade County, at least, we have recently experienced heat index of up to 130 degrees. A ideal working condition for an outdoor worker is a protected right to clean, safe drinking water, a protected right to frequent rest breaks, a protected right to a shaded structure or a shaded environment to take those rest breaks. I think an ideal situation would be language justice for outdoor workers who speak indigenous languages like Mam, Ishil, Quiche, Canchoal, to have their rights protected as well and have them, they understand the signs, symptoms, and risk factors associated with heat. I think ideal situation, working conditions would be, uh, you know, protected right to education, right? I think an ideal working situation would be a buddy system protocol, right? In many instances, our workers work on vast, large fields, right? Where there is no shade, right? Where oftentimes they work alone, right? And what happens when it's 130 degrees outside and they're working alone and one collapses on the job? Nobody sees them. Nobody can identify when someone is sick. So one very interesting subject is that in the state of Florida, we have obviously a Republican supermajority in both the Florida House and the Florida Senate, right? So Governor DeSantis is a Republican as well, so he controls the executive. Right now, the Republican Party has a trifecta government, executive, House, and Senate, right? In 2020, just 4 years ago, the Republicans passed very good legislation, very meaningful legislation that offered heat stress protections for high school athletes, for players who are on high school football teams, who play high school soccer, for example. What they did was they passed a law that mandated every single public high school in the state of Florida to make sure that they had heat stress protocols in place, requirements for water, shade, and rest for high school athletes. And the reason why they did this was because there was a high school football player who died, right? He was a white high school football player who died. And so what did the Republican legislature do? They passed those mandatory protections unanimously. They passed them unanimously. And the reason why they did so was because they followed the science. They read the science and they understood that there was a clear link between exertional activity, when you exert yourself outdoors, and outdoor temperature. When you have exertional activity combined with high outdoor temperatures, it means that you have a very high likelihood of suffering heat stress, right? And your body could begin to fail. Your internal organs can begin to fail and you could die. And so they thought that it was a good idea to pass these mandatory heat protections to protect high school athletes. What our organization is saying is that in the same way that the Republican legislature passed mandatory protections to protect outdoor athletes for against heat protections, they should do the same thing for outdoor workers. They should follow the science and protect outdoor workers in the same way that they protect high school athletes. It's essentially saying if you're doing one and you're not doing the other, is the life of a high school athlete worth more than the life of an outdoor worker? We reject that. We have to understand that farm workers, plant nursery workers, construction workers, the outdoor worker community keeps our state economy running. Without these workers, this state would have, without these workers, this state would be nothing, And so we really have to put our brains together and prioritize the people that keep these local economies running and functioning.